Tonight on Newswire L.A., we're bringing you our election wrap-up show, highlighting all of the interviews we've done with the mayoral candidates and recapping the major races and measures the voters were faced with. All of this and more coming up right after the credits. Almost 4 million people called the city of Los Angeles home, but less than a quarter of them actually got out and voted on March 5, 2013. That day was a critical one, as we were being called to choose our next mayor, city attorney, controller, several district seats, and 2 measures. Well, for those of you who are watching this program and who felt it was their duty to cast a ballot, we salute you. And we're going to get started by taking you back through this election season with Newswire L.A.'s patented political coverage. Let's take a trip to downtown Los Angeles and the Jan Perry headquarters. Perry, the popular 9th District Councilwoman, is one of 3 well-known candidates in the mayoral race. Today she's opening her campaign office with a rally. What you're about to see is previously unseen footage of Perry's own supporters coming out to publicly back her. And she has some pretty well-known names in the city. Let's go to Jan Perry.
Mr. Bernard Parks, former chief of police, wise man, great family man, good community man, and a good supporter of mine. I'm happy to see him here today and to say a few words on my behalf.
And so we wanted to come out and let you know that Jan Perry deserves your support. She's the only candidate in the race that has a track record of accomplishments that affect you and the community. She's the one that's put housing in your neighborhoods. She's put grocery stores in your neighborhood. She's brought a couple of 100,000 jobs in our city. She's brought you the locations such as L.A. Live, the Staples Center, Farmers Field. She's brought downtown to connect it to South Los Angeles to help that development. It's a pleasure for me to sit next to her because she is such a person that says exactly what's on her mind. Sometimes you have to look at her twice when she says something, but she is one that you do not have to worry about, that when she says, I'm going to do something, she's going to do it.
And I want to introduce to you someone whom I am proud to call my friend and my teacher, and a leader in the community, Councilman Mike Hernandez.
You see, Jan Perry is you. Jan Perry cares about you. We need to care about her. We need the rest of the city to know that Jan Perry's good for the city, just like she's been good for the people in the 9th District. So please, once again, 1, 2, 3, Jan Perry! It doesn't make a difference where we come from. It doesn't make a difference who we are. What makes a difference is that we're Angelinos, and we want to fix this city. That's what Jan Perry is about. That's why I stand here with a lot of pride and say I support Jan Perry. Yo tengo mucho orgullo de estar aquí con ustedes ahora y decir que yo quiero que Jan Perry sea el alcalde de la ciudad. I want Jan Perry to be the mayor of this city. You want Jan Perry to be the mayor of this city. We're going to make it happen. Thank you very much.
And now I'd like to introduce a friend of mine, and I'll be introducing friends throughout the day, but this is my friend. She's been a mentor to me, and when I talk about somebody who pushed me to make me a better person, I think about former Councilwoman Ruth Galanter, who is a professor at Loyola Marymount University, and I'm grateful that she's here, so I want her to say a few words. Ruth Galanter! Councilwoman.
I want to thank you all for coming out for Jan today, too. This is really, really important. I'm supporting Jan because I think she's far and away the best qualified of the candidates for mayor to actually run the city. Lots of people want to be the mayor because I'm the mayor. Look at me, I'm the mayor. Jan wants to be the mayor so she can make the city work better. And not only that, she's completely honest. This is something to be treasured in our elected officials. There are some people out there trying to say, oh, she can't win. And the answer to that is, of course she can win. People vote for her. If she gets enough votes, she wins. So it's very important that you are here. It's very important that you tell your friends, your relatives, the people you work with, people you go to school with, people all over the city. Don't be fooled by what those other guys are saying. Jan Perry will win this election if we all support her, including casting a ballot on March 5th.
A special guest arrived later in the day to address the troops who were part of Perry's army. We're talking about Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
She's an organizer, she's a legislator, she is one who has helped this city to solve some of its problems because she is a woman who does her research, she understands what the facts are, and she does not mind kind of speaking truth to power.
And now let's see some highlights from Jan Perry's interview with our Jamie Wright.
Let's transition into the campaign a little bit. In the Huffington Post this week, I saw that some of your opponents were saying that you were the underdog, and you were very clear about do not underestimate my campaign. What is it about your campaign that you feel they would underestimate?
Well, I think that at this point they have more money, and I'm assuming that they would try to parlay that into a message. But this campaign is not just about who has the most money. I mean, if it's about who has the most money, then you might as well just vote for that person today because they have the most money. That's not going to happen. This is a democracy. This is a competitive process. Obviously, you saw what happened here today. I have a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of diversity. I have a very strong message, and I'm able to mobilize large numbers of people to get out and vote for me.
And so what is that message that you're using to say, don't underestimate me?
When people, say I'm an underdog, it brings a smile to my face. It's their perception, not mine.
And so technically speaking, of the top four candidates, with the exception of Kevin James, I think he's a businessman. The three of you are sort of considered City Hall insiders, and I've heard that word used a lot, insiders, status quo. What will your campaign do? Obviously you can say, I have experience. But what will you do to sort of overcome that presumption about being a City Hall bureaucrat or City Hall?
Well, I think those are buzzwords that people in politics use. I mean, the question is, do the people out in the public actually believe that? I think today, the amount of people who have turned out here today and the enthusiastic support that I have indicates to me that people on the outside of those walls in City Hall don't believe that rhetoric. It's just rhetoric.
Okay. And so this week, there has been sort of a pouring in of money from Hollywood. I think I read the last figure was about $1 million. And I know you got support from one of the Star Trek stars, George Takei.
It's George Takei.
Okay.
And Lou Gossett has supported me, and I was really touched, and Dick Van Dyke, very touched and very flattered by all of their support. Because, I grew up watching all of them. And they're icons for me for different reasons. I mean, George Takei is an incredible advocate within the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community on an international scale. Lou Gossett, African-American Oscar Award winner, and Dick Van Dyke basically shaped and defined television for all of, well, not for you, for people my age, you know, growing up, and he continues to, you know, entertain people. Well, I know Dick Van Dyke because of his work at the Midnight Mission and his work on homelessness.
Okay. And so how do you think the influence of Hollywood dollars will affect your campaign or the election, the primary and the general election?
You know, the folks who are supporting me aren't supporting me because they're from Hollywood. They're supporting me basically because they're activists who happen to be a part of Hollywood. But they care about many causes, and that's how our lives have intersected each other. We are actually friends, or we know each other because we've worked together.
Okay. And with your strong themes and messages in your campaign, if there's an undecided voter that, you know, wants to figure out who exactly they should vote for, how would you, or what would you do to convince them that they should vote for you for mayor?
Well, I think what sets me apart is that I produce for people. I don't just talk, I do. And I have tangible results, and I can show you what I've done. I can show you the housing I've built. I can show you the wetlands I've built. I can introduce you to people who have jobs because of the efforts that I have made in downtown and South Los Angeles. I can show you downtown 11 years ago, and I can show you the work I have done over the last 11 years and point to any number of buildings and show you the difference that my presence here has made in a very tangible and specific way.
Okay.
Days later, Newswire L.A. was in South Los Angeles at Mount Gilead Baptist Church. We were the only broadcast outlet to cover the Southern Christian Leadership Conference's Mayoral Candidates Forum. The top 4 candidates in Eric Garcetti, Wendy Greuel, Kevin James, and Jan Perry were in attendance, and let's see some highlights from that night.
First question. What steps would you take to resolve the looming city budget shortfall for fiscal year 2013 through 2017?
3 things are important. 1, to live inside our means. Every household and every business has to do that. And I've shown the past 3 or 4 years that we can balance budgets by coming together with our unions, by looking at things like pension reform, our healthcare costs, and the number of workers that we have. Sometimes we need to raise new revenues, and we've shown that as a way forward as well. But to me, the most critical way, which will help somebody who's out of work in South Los Angeles and balance our budget, is jobs. We need to grow our economy. And I'm the candidate for mayor with the best track record of being able to provide jobs in one of the poorest districts in the city, the 3rd poorest district of 15, where 2 years running, the Chamber of Commerce, when they look at each different district, has said we're #1 in job growth, #1 in new business starts. I want to guarantee that every young person in this community who wants a summer job, like in the good old days, has a summer job. Because that drops crime, which means we have to spend less on policing, which means we have more money to balance the budget, and it means they're paying taxes, which again becomes part of that virtuous cycle. I want to see small businesses help. Here, where we see empty storefronts, where we see too many places where people have to get in a car or on a bus to go out of the community and don't spend their money right here. I want to recycle South LA dollars in South LA. And lastly, I want to make this a more business-friendly city. I want to take that small business and give them the opportunity to get on their feet because they're not paying a local city business tax that chases them either out of business or over the border.
But as we stand here today, we're talking about how we deal with the budget. And the first thing that we have to talk about is about job creation. It is all revolving around job creation. I'm proud that I was the architect of business tax reform in 2006, working with the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber and chambers across the city of LA to ensure that we were focusing in on helping small businesses. I'm proud that when I worked for Mayor Tom Bradley, that we provided the kind of economic opportunities and the funding necessary to create those jobs. But today, those jobs are not happening in South LA at the level and the numbers that we need to have. We need to have someone in the mayor's office who is the job czar, who is bringing those businesses into the community and ensuring that in every part that the jobs are going to people who live in that community. To make sure that the city of Los Angeles is part of a partner and not part of the problem. And so as we look at jobs, one of the things that's critically important is having an educated workforce. And it shouldn't matter what zip code you live in, what kind of education you're going to have. So as we look at the city's budget, our revenue is critically important. It means having a strong port, a strong airport. It means having tourism. It means making sure that we also have the kind of manufacturing and the clean tech corridor and the kinds of jobs that we want to see happen. and creating hubs of economic activity, particularly in South Los Angeles. But it also means looking at how we're managing our dollars. As a city controller, I've identified more than $160 million of efficiencies and waste, fraud, and abuse, things that we could do differently to help balance our budget. Because we have to stop the cycle of crisis, of layoffs, and furloughs, and not providing the kinds of services that are so necessary.
The question on what I would do to solve the budget problem in Los Angeles. We have to deal with revenues, and we have to deal with costs. First of all, in dealing with revenues, we must, and I will, make Los Angeles a business-friendly city again by presenting a business improvement package in the first few days of taking office that will consist primarily of two things: real business tax reform and permitting reform in the city of Los Angeles, because existing businesses and new businesses can't have all the red tape that stands in their way of wanting to grow in our community. And secondly, on the cost side, we have to budget our city with long-term solutions. That means pension reform and, yes, salary reform to save the jobs of our city workers, because when our city workers are not working in the city, services are not being provided across the city. And we have elected officials today that have overspent. And now, can you believe it? When you hear the news that Los Angeles is on the brink of bankruptcy, because it's shocking to me and it's shocking to the country. And that's why we need new leadership. And thank you.
Thank you.
But I love this city very much, and I want to be honest with not only the people who live here, the people who work for the city of Los Angeles, about the state where we find our budget. We've furloughed, we've early retired, we've cut. It's been hard, it's been painful. Our services have been reduced. That's what we had to do at the time we were in a worldwide recession. But I do not want to have the city continue like that into the future forever and ever and ever, with term limits kicking in and people moving forward into other positions, and the people get left behind. As next mayor, I've already demonstrated that I can bring new revenue to the city. 90,000 new jobs here in the city because of the projects that I have built, putting people back to work from Job Corps, from Trade Tech, from PD jobs, from the Coalition for Responsible Community Development, making sure that when developers did projects, they hired from within the community, because that's how you put people back to work. Building 5,000 new units of housing for families who work, people who are formerly homeless, women running from domestic violence, and people who just need some stability in their lives. Making sure that we move forward on the exposition line so that we can build a future for South Los Angeles. And if we don't get out of our cars, our children and our grandchildren will get out of our cars. And to work with LAUSD, I was just at brand new high school at 88th and San Pedro today, worked on a joint use agreement with them in Green Meadows Park, so they have expanded recreational space and a brand new high school. Thank you.
We just didn't stick with mainstream candidates this election season. One of the best candidates you may have never heard of was Emanuel Pleitez. Though he didn't make the